Welcome back to another Buick Outdoors podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I just want to kind of give a fair warning to everybody out there. If you're a friend of Jim's or a family member, and you've heard enough of the stories, this one might not be the one for you. Also, if you're sensitive to certain subjects, we're going to be talking about a missing person. We're going to be talking about death, and we're going to be talking about the potential of murder. So if you're sensitive to that, or if you have kids around, maybe this isn't the one for you. But with that being said, that's my warning to you, and let's get on with this week's episode. Welcome to the Buick Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Marion, and on this podcast, we dive deep into the outdoors. We discuss hunting and fishing techniques, give you tips and tricks, tell stories, and everything in between to help you enjoy the outdoors. This podcast is brought to you by Rampage Coffee. At Rampage Coffee, they have all sorts of different kind of blends of coffee. They have some merchandise and rubs as well. For me, my go-to is the C4 blend. It packs one heck of a punch, and it's enough to crank a diesel engine in the morning. And for me, not being much of a coffee guy, I don't like to drink it all day. So 1 or 2 cups of C4 blend, and I am good for the day. If you don't really know which one to get, I would highly suggest one of the bundle kits, and you can customize them so you can try all sorts of different varieties of blends and the size of packs that you want. And you can also get some merchandise in with your coffee kits as well. Also new for this year, they are now coming in K-Cups if you have a Keurig. So if you want to check those guys out, head over to rampagecoffee.com. And for you guys listening and watching this, if you use the promo code Buick at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your order. So that's rampagecoffee.com, promo code Buick, and you'll receive 10% off your order. Well, welcome back to part 2 of this missing person series, I guess what you could call it. So we already spoke about Sam's case and everything that kind of went on with that. It was a bit strange. There's still some questions, but you know what? The guy made it out alive, and hopefully he's on the mend now. And hopefully next spring, this whole incident doesn't hold him back, and he's back out there again, enjoying the woods. But this week we're going to be talking more about Jim or James, whichever one you want to go by there, and his dog Murphy. With this one, it's going to be probably about the same length, but there's just so many what ifs and questions as an outdoorsman, and also just a regular person looking at this case. But then I also I go into these things thinking with a very open mind, and I kind of relate almost to like detectives and RCMP on the way they think about things too, because you have to take into consideration all of the facts and like the actual evidence, not just hearsay. And there's a lot of weird stuff. So first of all, if you've listened to the other previous 2 podcast episodes, you're going to know pretty well the fine details of everything. But just to kind of bring everybody up to par, a guy was hunting out in Groundbirch area by the Murray River. He didn't come home. They called up and said, hey, we got a missing person. They went out, they searched for him, they couldn't find him. They found his vehicle. A few days or a week later, they found a boot track and a dog track down on the Murray River going towards the Pine. That was the last that they heard of him. Inside of his truck, there was his wallet, a rifle, and there's something else there too. I can't remember. You might have to go back to the original one there and see what was all in this truck there. But it's been so long, I'm starting to get a little hazy on my memory now. But yeah, that was it. There was absolutely nothing for quite a while, up until very recently. A a dog was found out in Mile 95 country, which is in up by Halfway River, and it was a golden retriever. Sorta looks like Murphy, but we'll get into that a little later on, because they just opened up a whole big can of worms about that dog, where it was found and everything like that. It's very, very strange, and the way it was handled was strange. But you know, it is what it is. We'll get into that here in a minute. So before we get into more of the details, there's one thing I want to say is that there was a guy out in the Groundbirch area, and I'm basically gonna bash him for this because I really did not like the way he went about his approach to this. Uh, Supposedly, he seen James and his dog the day that James went missing. And according to his story, uh, basically he seen James down in the Groundbirch area. Uh, he was trying to coax his dog out of the ditch back into his truck. When he drove by him, he smiled and waved at him. Everything looked like it was perfectly fine. Whatever. It was just a guy out in the bush with his dog. Uh, but that story came after a couple of days that Jim was missing. And what really, really, really bothered me was the guy didn't just come forward and say, yeah, you know what, I seen James down the road, and make up like a witness statement and give it to the police and then maybe say his side to, whatever local news networks. He used to be an article writer or one of the editors for one of our local newspapers. And he ended up writing like borderline a short story. It wasn't, I was driving down the road at, 3 o'clock on Sunday and I seen Jim. No, no. He went into full on storytelling mode, setting the mood, setting the tones. All that BS that like your grade 10 English teacher wanted you to do. The curtains were blue because he was sad or whatever. Instead of just, it was very oddly written, and to me it almost seemed like he was the type of guy that I'm kind of negative with everything that's been going on with these stories because there's just so many weird things, and I typically I'm not I don't go like straight to the dark side, but with this one, like, it seems like a guy that just wanted to be noticed for his writing skills, even though it sucked. If you're the guy that wrote that story, you should be kind of ashamed of how you went about it. Mainly because, you didn't just say, I seen the guy. It took me a good while to actually read this story, and I started skimming through it after I was reading for like 20 minutes. Like, it was a long, drawn out story. So I that just irked me. Just, because it was such a hot topic at the time, and it almost seems like he just wanted to be a part of it, kind of a deal. I mean, even doing something like this, you could say the same thing about me, just like discussing this. But with him, if you can find the article, it might be on CJDC or Energetic City, one of those pages on Facebook and stuff. But oh man, I don't even like mention the guy's name, so I'm not, because it just, I did not like the way it was written. But according to him, he seen Jim the day that he went missing. He seemed happy and healthy. Seen his truck, seen his dog. Not a care in the world kind of thing, just a happy-go-lucky guy out in the bush. After that, though, there's been no sightings of him whatsoever. When the search party started happening too, like I said in the original podcast, when it came to like the maps and stuff, nobody really pinpointed and said, this is his last known location, this is where we found the truck. Everything was under wraps. Everything was real hush hush. So it seems to me that maybe the police were like, hey, this might not be a missing person. This might be some sort of an abduction or a murder case, which I'm heavily leaning towards. But then, you take into consideration that the guy's dog was also with him, and it it just opens up so many weird conspiracies and what ifs, and like, man, your head's probably gonna spin, and you're gonna be more confused and have more questions by the end of this if I spew out kind of all of the the branches of the spider web here. So my first thought was the guy just said, you know what, I'm done with life, I'm leaving. And he left his truck behind, he left his rifle, his keys, and his wallet. And that was the other one that was left behind, was his keys. And he just disappeared into the bush with his dog, kind of like how I would if I just had enough of kind of life kind of thing. But then when I'm going to say it's his dog showed up in mile 95, I don't really think it's Murphy. I really, really don't believe it's him. Also, leading up to that, the GoFundMe account has been getting pushed by his girlfriend and by his sister, like salesmen. And it's not to say that it's because they've done something. Yeah, you never know how you're going to react in a situation like this. And I mean, whether you're at home or not, bills are going to be coming out of your bank account. So that, like, I do understand it. It's just the way that the girlfriend was going on about things. She wasn't commenting on anything. The only thing she was really doing is just pushing this GoFundMe. So that was kind of weird. And then when it came to this dog, they found a dog out on mile 95, which is like 70 miles from where Jim's truck was found. And to get there, you would have had to head pretty well straight north from Groundbirch area. You could take the Murray River down to the Pine, take the Pine, walk down to the Peace, which was about half of a lake by then, and even if it was still just a river, the Peace River is not a small river. It is wide, deep, and it's somewhat slow, but I mean, like, I wouldn't ever want to cross it, especially at the end of October, kind of a thing. Like, it would not be a good day. It'd be pretty cold and challenging, and boy, that would suck. But regardless, even if he did cross there, whether it's Jim or the dog or both, then they either would have had to pretty well walk along the highway until they got to the Alaska Highway and then went up that way, or they could have come upriver to where the halfway flows in, and then they would have had to hike upstream of the halfway in like some incredibly rough terrain and steep terrain, or walk up the river hills and then kind of walk through farmers' fields and stuff. But see, so I mean, like that, for them to get to mile 95, I think it is virtually impossible to do without being caught or seen. So that really raised questions for me, that they found his dog there. Again, quote unquote, his dog there. Uh, and when they found the dog, another really weird chain of events happened where his girlfriend already replaced Murphy with another dog who was supposedly one of Murphy's siblings. And that doesn't sound too far-fetched, except for the thing that Murphy was 18 months old. So, I mean, my dog, Texas, he's about 2 years old now. If somebody went missing with one of his siblings, tough titty, I'm not giving you my dog. So, I mean, like, getting a dog that looks very similar to Murphy, I don't know. It sounds like a whack job idea, but did she really get another dog, or did she just have Murphy in the house? We don't really know. Uh, and then when that Murphy was found, nothing was really said for a couple of days before she went out there and looked at the dog. Like, if one of my dogs went missing and somebody said, "Hey, we found this dog that looks like yours," I don't care where I am. If I was whatever halfway across the world, I'd be getting the first plane ticket back, let alone having to drive 45 minutes to go look. I wouldn't wait 2-3 days. Right? So, I mean, man, it is so strange. And then at the same time, too, there was another dog that was missing kind of in the same area, Peanut. And with that dog, the owner looked at the one that was found and went, "No, that's not mine." Like, she knew instantly. Kayla went, "I don't know if that's my dog or not." If you don't know what your dog looks like after the thing's been around you for almost 2 years, like, come on. It's another weird thing, especially like Mile 95. Nobody, again, is saying where they found it. There are some subdivisions up there. There's also the Russians that are living up there too. They have a great big colony. Did the dog come from the colony? Did it come from one of the subdivisions out there? Nobody is saying anything. Nobody's really, doing much. And then also, after they found this dog, they started pushing the GoFundMe again because people with bleeding hearts, they want to pay for vet bills because this thing was pretty rough and beat up. He had a couple of little scars on him, looked a little malnourished, and he had a broken leg, I think. Either that or a sprain or something. He ended up getting a cast on his one leg. But after seeing what my dogs look like, after spending like a weekend in a tent with me, they looked in more rough shape than that dog did, like fur wise. His body was pretty beat up. He looked skinny. I guess he had a couple of cuts and gashes on him and stuff, and then his leg was all buggered up. But it didn't seem like a dog that had to travel in a straight line 70 miles to actually go there. That would have been hundreds of miles to some of the worst country imaginable. The dog didn't look like he went through that. What it looked like was a dog that was dropped off and left for dead. Because he didn't have the telltale signs, like a bunch of stuff caught up in his coat. Like the dog's coat was like still, it was combed and shiny, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it was very strange. But then that kind of goes to like the girlfriend, where it took her a couple of days to go there. When she got there too, she said that she didn't know if it was her dog. Now, is that part of the cover up or a potential cover up because she already supposedly got this other one? And this other dog, nobody's saying anything about that other than Michaela herself saying that she already got a dog from a gentleman that was one of Murphy's siblings. They didn't say if it was male or female. There's no pictures of it. So there's a lot of weird things going on. And like, I don't want to be the person like jumping into somebody's life and really pinpointing little things out or trying to, be snoopy and stuff. But when it comes to a case like this and all the weird, strange things, and her just being silent through the whole thing, it is just, there's a lot of red flags that are going off. Also, the dog was only missing for about 2 weeks before she replaced him. That irked me to my core. Like, I did not like that at all. It's there's so many weird unanswered questions, especially for a dog to get out to mile 95. So I mean, if you think about it this way, say this gentleman, maybe him and had something going on. So he followed James out to Groundbirch because he told her that he was going hunting. And he did something to James and either left him there or put him into his truck, took off. To go from Groundbirch to Mile 95, on a map it looks like a long ways, but it's a 2-hour drive, roughly. You can easily do that in a day. It's 2 hours. So say you went out there to drop off, dump James, and the dog got out, and the guy couldn't get the dog. He might have just panicked and scrambled and drove away. Or, there's so many problems and open-ended things with this story, because, there's that, or maybe this gentleman did, pick up James, do some very evil things, and drove out of there and left him somewhere. Worst case scenario, he did, unalive him. I gotta be careful with the words I use, otherwise, YouTube likes to flag this stuff and take some things down. But if he did that, but he kind of had a soft spot for the dog, brought it back, fabricated a story saying, hey, look, how about I just say I gave you this dog? And it's one of Murphy's siblings. That's why he looks so similar to him. That could be possible. But then this other dog happened to come up, and now in panic mode they went, well, shit, I already got this other dog. How are we gonna come up with this story? Well, how about we just say I gave you this dog and that dog actually is Murphy, and now we can kind of push the GoFundMe a little bit more. It's maybe, it's even hard to kind of comprehend and put it all together in words and into stuff that actually kind of makes sense, because there's so many weird loose ends and what ifs. I keep saying that like I'm a broken record, but search and rescue was out for 2 weeks in Groundbirch. And again, just like Sam's case, if that you're quote unquote a missing person, right? If I told Shelby, hey, look, Friday I'm going hunting down whatever, mile 95, and I didn't show up Monday morning when I was supposed to be back Sunday, there's going to be a search party out there. And if I hear helicopters Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning, I'm going to go, that's most likely for me. And again, you're going to have a signal fire or something, right? Like, you're going to try to be found. Where in this case, even the boot track itself just seems weird that somebody would go from the banks of the river, leave his gun, his wallet, and his keys, walk all the way down to the Murray, walk all the way down to the Pine, and then just kind of disappear and leave your truck like miles back. And not just your truck with your keys in it, and your wallet, and a gun with it unlocked. To me, it sounds like, it really sounds like he was either followed out there and got picked up, or he got into an altercation with somebody. Who knows? Maybe it's something as simple as he was actually chasing his dog in the trees or whatever. His dog came running out onto the road. He went running out after him, and somebody accidentally ran him over. And they panicked and they picked him up and they drove out somewhere and threw him down a hill. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really know, and like, it is pure speculation, but you have to think of it as, the search and rescue that went to his last known location. They had helicopters, dogs, infrared, just like in Sam's case. They didn't find any trace of him. No boots, no shoes, no clothing, no gear, no bags, no shelter, no heat traces, no heat signatures, no dog tag, no dog hair, no dead dog. So, I mean, it really seems like they were picked up. Uh, and if they were, Mile 95, again, that's a good place to get lost or to make somebody lost. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, I don't know. It it is a very strange case, and I'm really leaning towards that it was more or less foul play at hand now. Um, Especially if that dog does turn up to be Murray, or Murphy. But even then, I have a real hard time believing that it is, because I was looking at pictures, and there's a couple of pictures from a photographer that were up, and then on his Facebook profile, and you compare it to the pictures of this injured dog, and then there's also been no updates on that dog. And when you compare the pictures, they don't look similar at all. Murphy has a wide, flat head on the side of his eyes. He has little black marks, kind of like the little mascara, like the little Egyptian wings almost. And then same thing on the top of his head. He has faint little crest marks. The dog they found, again, you gotta think, like, he is skinny as hell. He's not in the greatest of shape, but he doesn't really, from what I could see, he doesn't look to have the same markings on his face. With that dog, he has a bit of a narrow and long face. He has a big crest on the top of his head. They end up getting that kind of like with older age. The older they are, the higher that crest gets. Same thing with like wolves and bears. They get the same thing. If they have a really defined crest on the top of their head, it's an old animal. I think that's one of the bones that just kind of slowly grows over time. Being 18 months old, it should be flat. The dog they found, there's a very distinct crest. Uh, Also, he doesn't really have the black little, I call them like the little Egyptian wings or whatever. I don't know what the actual word is for it. But slight darkening on the corners of the eyes. Uh, they have like the typical dots right above their eyelids, but like there's two little lines on his forehead on like the actual Murphy dog. I think I might be getting them backwards here. I'd have to double check the pictures, but just looking at them side by side, they, to me, does not look like the same dog. The dog that was found looks to be probably like a 4-year-old or so. He's not a young pup. Like, there is some age to him. Uh, I'm not exactly like a quote-unquote expert, but I pay attention to a lot of small details. And if I was to put money on it, I would say that it's not Murphy, but you never know. Also, the problem too is like a lot of golden retrievers, they do look very similar. And the thing with the dog that was found is Kayla said, yeah, it's hard to tell if this is Murphy or not. His temperament has changed, his attitude has changed. Just in general, the dog is a different dog. And like, yeah, he would be a little traumatized. That definitely, I'm not throwing that out. But at the same time, if that was your dog and he's been out in the woods for 5 weeks, when he sees you, he's gonna be excited. There's gonna be. I mean, I leave for work for a week and then I come home. My dog is more than happy to see me. Granted, he's been in a nice warm house for a week, not out in the bush. So as I'm editing this, I forgot to mention the DNA analysis that they're going to be doing on the dogs. So yeah, I'm just going to cut in here now and let you know what's going on with the whole DNA story. So one of the things they're going to use to identify this new dog and to see if it is Murphy, supposedly you're going to do like a cheek swab or whatever, and they're going to do DNA analysis between the new dog and this old dog, or I'm getting them mixed up where there's too many dogs, there's only two of them. The the lost dog and her new pup. Uh, because the new pup is supposedly one of Murphy's siblings. So I mean, like, if that comes back positive, that yeah, these two dogs are related, then that opens up the door to something else, and it gives them a little more credit. However, it comes back negative. Uh, that puts up even more red flags, because then now it for sure isn't Murphy, right? Uh, Also, the RCMP are wanting for that DNA analysis to be done as well. So hopefully, what happens is that they're able to do it in the presence of RCMP, or the RCMP just do it themselves. That way, there's no, you know, putting two of the same cotton swabs in the evidence bag kind of a thing. So they can't really tamper with it. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if this is gonna work or not. What they were saying too with that DNA thing is that they said, yeah, it's gonna take a couple of weeks before we get results back, and then we'll know for sure whether it's Murphy or not. Uh, it was like a day later, some random person said something about biolab test confirmed, or they used some weird word like that, and I just kind of laughed because you know they said it's gonna take 2 weeks, and then some stranger said, "Oh yeah, they did the test and it passed already." Like, even if they sent it out, it wouldn't have even made it to the lab yet, let alone to be analyzed and to get results. Uh, and since then, we've passed that 2 week window, and there's been no update. So I mean, it's one of those things where you would think if it would have been a positive test and it would have 100% for sure came back as Murphy, something would have been said by now. And the fact that they've been quiet about it, it again is just another red flag. But not knowing if that's your dog or not, and then to top it off, she put that dog into foster care. Again, another thing where just seeing how her personality has been throughout this entire thing, is making me lean more and more and more towards that she knows something or she has done something. If I was a criminal investigator, she would be probably at the top of the list. Again, though, that's just me speculating. I don't mean to bash them, but when you look at everything that's been going on and lining up and the way she's been silent with everything, the way she's been reacting to GoFundMe accounts, the way she's been reacting to a found dog that, she quote unquote loved and missed so much, and then all of a sudden when they did find it, it was almost a shock, like, oh shit, they've potentially found Murphy, and now we gotta scramble and come up with a story as to how they found him, why they found him, where, you know what I mean? Like, there's too much going on for me to say anything really good, really. Uh, yeah, that's one thing with doing this podcast by yourself too, is that, as I'm having this conversation, it's a one-way conversation. So, like, you don't get any feedback at all, right? Like, this would be much better if there was like three people all kind of communicating together and coming up, and putting their 2 cents in. Where right now it's just me kind of rambling on about the way I feel, and there's nobody saying, hey, you know what, that's wrong, or actually this came up. I'm just going off of what I've seen so far, and like with this case, it's very similar to like Sam's case, where there's so many conversations happening over on social media and stuff from so many different sources, and there's so many different sides of the story and different family members and stuff. So it's like you take this story and you just blow it up to about, I don't know, 20 different pieces, and you're trying to piece together every little bit to come up with something as to like what actually happened, and it's extremely hard. Uh, so I mean, like, I do apologize for kind of basically going off on a whim and repeating myself a lot, but it is a very, very weird one, especially if you're a missing person. Uh, and Jim was a very avid outdoorsman. He's gonna have some knowledge, and even if you don't have your gear with you, you can still make like a little shelter, like a lean-to, with just scraps of wood that's on the ground. I've done it before, like when I was a kid, especially, just to build a fort. And that was just me being like a child, picking up sticks and putting it together as like an A-frame and calling it a fort. All I was doing is building a lean-to. Um, so I mean, if a little kid or a child can do that, a full-grown man with outdoor experience should be able to do that too. I don't know, guys. It is weird. I hope something comes up where he actually did do what I thought he did, is where he just said, yeah, I'm just done with life, and just kind of took off and made camp somewhere. But even the area that he went missing in, I drive through there about 4 times a month. Every time I look down out into that valley, see if there's any little puffs of smoke or anything on fire, and I haven't seen nothing. I crossed the river where the track was found, and there's been nothing, unfortunately. And then also when they had that second search going on after they found the dog out in mile 95, search and rescue and RCMP, they went out there, and they were trying to keep quiet about it, I think. And again, they really didn't want people in that area because it was a new lead. They wanted to go out and look for certain items and potential clues and stuff.
And, it's just, everything has been way too weird. And I think the cops, to be honest with you, have been treating this more or less like a murder than a missing persons case from day one. And that's potentially why, or partially why, everybody's been so quiet about it from the start. Um, but yeah, if you guys have any, well, if you guys want to join the conversation, basically, because like I said, I've been just on a one-way street here. You know, please leave your comments down below, and maybe we can put our heads together and come up with like a reasonable solution. And if I'm wrong on any of this, please correct me and like actually update me on like what's going on and anything like that, or update us on what you're allowed to. Like there is that potential tidbit there where maybe they're not allowed to talk about it. Um, but yeah, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation and causing even more ruckus and rumors. This is at the end of the day, this is just me speculating and me questioning a lot of stuff. And I feel sorry for the girlfriend. Uh, you know, especially like if she had nothing to do with it. I am very sorry. I don't mean to uh, shine a spotlight on you, I guess would be one way of saying it. But after seeing just how everything has been handled and how quiet she has been, and if you're listening to this, I don't mean to. I'm terribly sorry if you are like innocent. Uh, but man, you have to admit things do look pretty strange. But hopefully the guy is found. Um, right now, though, again, if you're friends of Jim's or family member or whatever, you definitely don't want to hear this. But by now, you're not looking at a search and rescue. It's going to be a search and recovery if you find him at all. This is one that might end up just being guy disappeared. You know, and I don't mean to say that lightly because it could very easily happen to me. I've hunted in Groundbirch and Stewart Lake and Pine River, and I've spent time on the Murray River, so yeah, I'm familiar with those places. Like I know where he disappeared at. I've walked the rivers that he recently walked on. So what happened to him could easily happen to me depending on what actually happened. And yeah, I hope for the best, but at this point I'm pretty well expecting the worst, which is unfortunate. But yeah, anyways, guys, if you guys have anything to say about this, uh, or if I need to be corrected, please leave it in the comments below. Hopefully, you enjoyed this podcast. It's been a bit of a head twister, head scratcher, whatever, and hopefully we get some answers real soon about this. And if something bad did happen, hopefully the people that did it, they get some justice served to them. And yeah, stay safe out there. I'll catch you on the next one.